Hey everyone, Mike here with another audience participation write-in episode. A couple weeks ago, I asked everybody on Twitter what their favorite year in gaming was, and to give me a few examples of some of their favorite games from that year. I'll start off with my favorite. My favorite is 1998, and in 1998 we got The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Probably my favorite Legend of Zelda game in the series. I remember getting this for Christmas that year, and maybe like I think it took me a couple weeks to beat it. I didn't play it nonstop, but um, beautiful visuals for the time, great gameplay with the ocarina. Even remember people were posting on the internet ocarina sheet music, basically where you can just take the ocarina out and play, like the Star Wars theme and stuff like that. So people were actually transcribing real music to the in-game ocarina music, which is pretty cool. But this is one of the first games I remember playing where I actually commented on that. The world that the game takes place in just looked beautiful. It. I remember like one particular time where I think you're overlooking one of the lakes, and it's actually when you get the fire arrows. I just remember like watching the sunrise in that level, because to get the fire arrows you basically shoot at the sun and to unlock them. But I remember commenting that it was beautiful in that scene. My favorite Legend of Zelda game, and one of the greatest games of all time. Next up, I have Metal Gear Solid. This is probably the first game I played where I felt like I was actually playing an interactive movie. They had like really high quality cutscenes for the time. The visuals obviously haven't aged all that well, but great visuals, great music. Also, great characters, great dialogue, great gameplay with like the stealth mechanics, and obviously the Psycho Mantis fight being great. How it reads your memory card, and then also has you switch the controller port to so he can't read your mind. Things like that. A great game, and this started kicked off the Metal Gear Solid series. It wasn't the first game in the Metal Gear series, and those are on the NES and MSX. But first game in the Solid series, and probably one of my favorite games of all time. I have the 2004 remake as well. I kind of wish that they would go back and use the engine from Metal Gear Solid 5 to do a remake of this. That would be a lot of fun. I think the 2004 remake is really good, but the added gameplay from Metal Gear Solid 2 almost makes it too easy. It's like they added in the gameplay elements from Metal Gear Solid 2, but didn't adjust the AI as well as they should have. So, for example, in Metal Gear Solid, in this version, in the original, you couldn't hang off ledges. In the Twin Snakes, the remake, you can hang off ledges and do all that kind of stuff, and the guards still won't notice you when you're hanging off the ledges like they would in Metal Gear Solid 2. So, uh, still a great remake, a lot more cinematic than this version, but probably my favorite version is this because it was a little more challenging. I remember one time my cousin and I played it. I think I've played this game through probably at least 3 or 4 times. But I remember the second time I played it through with my cousin, and we took turns playing through the game, and we took an afternoon and just finished it. I forget how long it took and what ranking we got, but great game. Next up, I have the original Half-Life. This was the first-person shooter I remember playing where it had a really great story and a slow build-up around that story. Like in games like Quake and Doom, you're kind of just dropped right into the action. In this game, it's a slow build-up as you take that train into work, you go through various things and getting set up for the experiment, and then that goes terribly wrong, and the dimension is opened, and like the alien forces start coming through and all that. But even when that actually starts happening, there's still room to breathe. It feels like an organic environment, and it's not just designed to kill aliens or monsters. So it feels like a well lived in world, and one of my favorite games. And I haven't played this game in probably a few years, but I'm probably going to go back and play this one again. All right, next up, um, Eric Taylor wrote in with his favorite year. He chose 1991, and the first game on his list was The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. I probably rank this right up there with Ocarina of Time as being probably the best. It's like really close between those two for me. Um, one of the best Zelda games. I love that they had the light and the dark worlds, and also great music for the SNES, great graphics, and one of the greatest stories for Legend of Zelda ever told, and it's probably a good reason they went back to it with Link Between Worlds, which ties into this. So, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past was his number one pick. Next up, he had Super Mario World, probably my favorite Mario game, at least of the older consoles. I like that they added in Yoshi, they added in, and also the other versions of Yoshi where he can breathe fire, or depending on what kind of shells he eats. They added in the cape, bunch of other stuff, and this game just has tons and tons of secrets. A great Mario game. And lastly, he has Advanced Dungeons and Dragons: Eye of the Beholder. Came out on PC. I think maybe some of the other computers, maybe like Amiga, stuff like that. And then it was also ported to the Super Nintendo. The only version I remember playing was the Super Nintendo version, but it pretty much incorporates as much Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, the actual tabletop rules, as it can. I know when you go and you create a character, you pick an avatar, you pick their alignment, and then you roll their stats, and it's just like a great game, just a great RPG. Next up, Ken Cowan wrote in with his favorite year being 2004, and first up for him he had Halo 2, and when Halo 2 came out, I didn't like it as much as I did probably like maybe a few months after. I just remember the first thing that kind of bothered me was the constant cheating over Xbox Live with the standby glitch where people would unplug their modems, plug the modem back in, and when everybody was resyncing to the game, the player that did the cheat would have a few seconds advantage to where they can just run across the level, kill everybody, and then when everybody resyncs, they'd be dead. But other than that, great game, great single player, great multiplayer. Probably the reason Xbox Live is a thing. I know it's the reason I pretty much got got an Xbox and Xbox Live was to play this game. So I remember buying it day one. Couldn't get into a whole lot of games that day, but then within a few days later, there was no shortage of games to find. Next up, he has Ghost Recon 2. I'd never played this version, so I'm not sure if he played it on Xbox or if he played it on. I know they made it on PlayStation 2, but so I can't really speak to it. But I would imagine it's like the others, where it's a very tactical shooter, realistic damage modeling and all that. Next, he has Star Wars Battlefront, and I would agree. Even though I probably think Battlefront 2 is a slightly better game, but this is a great game. Let you relive some of the more iconic battles in the Star Wars universe. From the prequels all the way up to the classic trilogy. Great game. I like that you have various different classes that you can choose from, different weapons for each class. And I'm really looking forward to I guess they're just calling it Battlefront, but essentially Battlefront 3, which will be coming out later this year. He also put in Tony Hawk's Underground 2. I think this is probably the last great Tony Hawk game, or the last one that was really good. I remember Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 being good, but being too easy, and 4 being almost too difficult, because in 3 they put it in the revert, and that just made, insane combos almost too easy to pull off. And then in 3 they adjusted the goals to be almost too hard. And then the Underground series started let you kind of have a story behind your career. So this continues that, and I remember this one features a lot of people from the Jackass crew. You're skating all over the world. And I remember the one that came out. I don't know what came out after this. It may have been American Wasteland, because I think that was a 360 launch title. I didn't think it was very good. It was touted as having no loading screens, but basically every area that connected the main areas was basically just a tunnel that was a loading screen. So Underground 2, probably the last good game of the Tony Hawk series that I remember playing anyway. He also has Half-Life 2. Agreed, of course. The original Half-Life was amazing, and then this game came out with great graphics, great physics, a great story, and again another kind of slow build up. How you start off, I think you start off in City 17, and then you slowly work your way into the Resistance, and you start trying to fight back the Combine forces that have invaded. Of course, it added the awesome gravity gun where you can pull objects toward you, and fling them at your enemies. Alright, Mark Murray wrote in next, with 1986 being his favorite year, with the original Legend of Zelda, which I totally agree with. Agree with. The game still holds up. I think the last time I played it and beat it was probably 3 years ago. But I remember getting this is the second NES game I had, and it actually took me a while to beat it. I remember, getting lost in the Lost Woods several times, and then not being able to find Death Mountain, like the secret entrance. But a great game, still holds up, and still just an amazing adventure. All right, next up he put Metroid in. Metroid, I played this on the original NES. I think I played it in. I didn't get it right when it came out, but I think I rented it from like a video store, and wasn't really sure what to do. But I do like that features a female protagonist in Samus, and it also has kind of the gameplay where certain areas are kind of inaccessible, and then once you get certain upgrades, you can then go explore those areas that you previously couldn't. Great start to the series. He also puts in Super Mario Bros. 2. I'm assuming he means the original Japanese version that was never released in the United States until Super Mario All Stars, where I even remember seeing this offered in, I think it was a Sears catalog. It just said Mario 2, and I remember seeing a screenshot of it because they had a small screenshot next to it, and I'm like, that looks like Mario 1, and essentially it was. And I believe what happened is they were going to release it in the United States, and then they decided that the game was too difficult for the American audience, and then took Doki Doki Panic, reskinned that, and released that as the American version of Super Mario Bros. 2. So, this was released in Japan. Very difficult because they added in the poison mushroom, like the purple mushroom. If you get it, you die. Or, I don't remember if you die outright if you're super or not. But if you're small and you take it, Mario dies. But really fun. Can be played. It was able to be played in the United States. I think it was in 1993 when they put out Super Mario All Stars. He also has in Space Quest, one of the classic adventure games. Just super funny. Kind of these games were kind of hit or miss for me. This was one of the ones that I thought was really good, but it was also kind of difficult because this was when adventure games were kind of weird. How you have to basically just take item A and hope it matches up with item B, and hope that's you're using the right combination of items in the right order. He has Bubble Bobble. First in the arcades, came out to the, I believe, NES. I'm not sure, and I think some other platforms as well. But really cute game. Started off a whole series of these games, as well as Bust a Move, because these guys show up in that game as well. He has Adventure Island, the original really good platformer on the NES. I remember it also being quite challenging. I didn't play that game that much. I think I just rented it on a couple occasions. But very fun game. I remember also renting the Super Nintendo version, Super Adventure Island, which I thought was pretty tough. All right, next up, Aaron Steinberg wrote in, picking the year 2000. And first off, he has WWF No Mercy. I'm going to call it WWF since that's actually what it's called. But the best wrestling game ever made. Other games, obviously have better graphics. They have more customization options. But there's something about No Mercy where it's a very simple yet very deep control system for performing moves, performing finishers, reversals, all that kind of stuff. Really great customization options for the time. I went back and started playing this again on an emulator. I actually have I don't know if I have my N64 in Denver or not, or if it's still in storage, but I created on the emulator. I created Dolph Ziggler, CM Punk, a few other modern wrestlers, but this game had great customization. You can go in and create, a wrestler and give them just tons of moves. It was a huge step up from WrestleMania 2000. It had a career mode with branching story paths. The only downside to the career mode was it was a bug that sometimes your wrestler would get reset to be the default created wrestler about halfway through your storyline. But best wrestling game ever made. 4 players had. You can use the controller pack to just store extra wrestlers. I even remember one time was part of a forum that we had an eFed, and we would do our matches and our pay-per-views using No Mercy. So people would post in the forum. They would post their wrestler, how to build it, what moves to use, and then we would go in. I would go in, I think I only did we only I did the Royal Rumble for our particular EFED, and I remember we went in, set it to simulation mode, and then just had the wrestlers wrestle, and I just wrote down the results. But great wrestling game. Next up, he has Perfect Dark. I think Perfect Dark kind of gets slightly underrated when it compares to GoldenEye, because I think GoldenEye, a lot of people just remember it being the first console first person shooter that really worked. I think Perfect Dark overall is the better game. I think GoldenEye might have the better single player story because it's a James Bond story and kind of play like the movie. Perfect Dark's storyline is really good too, but the multiplayer in Perfect Dark I think totally outshines GoldenEye because it added in just a ton of awesome weapons like the laptop gun, the cyclones, things like that, and it also added in bot support, so you can play a single player game against I think they were called simulants, and it was all the simulants were also cool because they each had different traits. So there was like the Venge sim, which would only go after the person that had killed it last. So if I was playing and I killed the Revenge sim, he would target me above all else until somebody else killed him. There was simulants that would have faster speed. Simulants that would try to just grab up all the guns and ammo so nobody can use them. Things like that. It also I think it pretty much required the expansion pack to use to use everything. I don't know if the single player required the expansion pack, but I think all the multiplayer did. But a great game, and it's kind of unfortunate that the series has never really been able to get on track after the first game. I have the 360 game, and it just wasn't very good. And next up, he has Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. This is my favorite Tony Hawk game in the series. It was the perfect blend of fun and challenge, and it let you create your own custom skaters and your own custom skate parks, and you can save them to a PlayStation memory card. I rank this higher than the other ones because, like I said, it's a perfect level of challenge. They added in the manual, so you could link together ground and grind tricks, but it's also challenging enough that even with the manual, the level goals are still a challenge. Like in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, they added in the revert, and that just made everything way too easy. But in 2, it was not more challenging, but it felt like a perfect balance of challenge and fun. Some of the great levels are, there's the school, the hangar, probably Marseille, the first tournament level in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. And then, of course, the ability to create your own skater and the ability to create your own parks. And I believe it also had the Matt Hoffman DMX demo in there as well. All right, and finally, James Buchanan wrote in. He chose 2011 for his year, and his first pick was Portal 2. And Portal 2 is, I believe, one of my favorite games of all time. It took the concept of Portal, which was released originally, I think it was like 2007, on the Orange Box collection, and it was kind of just put in there. I think it was just thrown in as like a proof of concept. They're like, oh, here's this cool thing we've been working on. We'll just, add it to the Orange Box and see what happens. Massively successful. Has great atmosphere, great characters for essentially being a puzzle game. And then in Portal 2, everything gets cranked up to 11. They add in Wheatley. They totally change what GLaDOS does. They add in all the different gels and like you can coat the wall in the speed gel or the bounce gel. Also added in co-op. I remember beating this on Xbox Live with a friend of mine, and it was just an awesome experience, especially when you're playing a level over and over again. You're like, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? And then it's like a huge accomplishment when you find out what you have to do. Next up, he has Deus Ex Human Revolution. I didn't play a whole lot of Deus Ex, but I do have this on the 360. And I remember really liking the RPG elements, but having a really hard time doing the stealth. The stealth seemed almost way too challenging. I remember trying to go through a few levels where you have the taser pistol, but after failing like the first mission a couple times, stealthily I just went in and started killing everybody. But really great game. Super customizable with the the different augments you can get and all that, and a pretty good story also. And finally, he has Batman Arkham City. I have this game on the 360. I actually have it also on PC. Great game. I like that they took what worked with Arkham Origin, like the combat, all the characters, and basically just now put you in a huge open world city with an awesome story. Like the Rogues Gallery shows up. Um, just a really fun game. Like has that kind of, I think the term is Metroidvania now, where, and like I mentioned in Metroid, certain areas are locked off until you get the right gear. So Batclaw or the explosive gel to get into secret areas. Once you get those, you can go back and expand the game even further. And of course, great voice acting from Mark Hamill, Kevin Conroy, and all the other characters. So I want to thank everybody that wrote in with their favorite years in gaming and a few of their favorite games from those years. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, rate, comment, and subscribe. In the comment section, I'm interested to hear what your favorite year in gaming was and a few of your favorite games as well. So I want to thank you all for watching, and take care.